The MC of this story, Gislin Peridium, is infamous for being a wild and uncontrollable sword master, a guy who's often locked away in his room, supposedly out of his mind. And on top of all that, he's known as the worthless eldest son of Count Peridium. With titles like that, you'd expect him to be just another pampered noble brat. But that's far from the truth, at least not anymore. His opponent is starting to figure that out the hard way. This bearded guy facing Gislin can't believe what's happening. He's getting thoroughly beaten by someone he thought was just useless scum. Meanwhile, Gislin is calm and collected, cool as ever during the fight. Internally, he's actually satisfied, because all the money he dumped into setting up this trap is finally showing results. With a smirk, Gislin asks the bearded man if he's enjoying the unexpected twist. That only pisses the guy off more, because it feels like Gislin knew exactly how things were going to play out. And guess what? Gislin proudly admits it. He didn't just anticipate the enemy's plan. He knew everything from the start. The number of soldiers, the identity of the spies who provided reinforcements, he had it all figured out. The bearded man is stunned. He starts yelling, furious that his secret weapon has been exposed by someone he once dismissed as worthless. But Gislin isn't in the mood for his whining. He shuts him up with a solid kick to the face, making it clear, this guy can scream all he wants, but no matter how many fights break out, Gislin is confident he'll come out on top every single time. So, how is he so sure of winning? Simple, because he knows everything. Let's rewind for a second. Almost a year ago, in the kingdom of Lithuania near the Peridium estate, Gislin Peridium woke up in pure shock. He was alive, but he shouldn't have been. The last thing he remembered was being in the middle of a hopeless battle, squaring off against one of the continent's elite 7 noble knights, a man named Aduin, the one who was supposed to kill him. Now, Gislin wasn't just some random nobody either. He used to be one of the top 7 mercenary kings on the continent, feared and respected everywhere under the name Gislin Peridium. Before ending Gislin's life, Aduin mocked him, saying he never expected to see the trash of the fallen Peridium family again. From what Aduin knew, Gislin had vanished after his sister's death, and his name had become nothing but a fading memory. That threw Gislin off. He asked how the hell Aduin knew so much about his past. Aduin told him he'd been tracking him for a long time, because he was one of the people involved in the destruction of the Peridium family. He had worked alongside the Delphine household to bring them down. Hearing one of them made Gislin freeze. That meant the Delphine household hadn't acted alone. There were others who played a role in his family's ruin. And now, one of those people was standing right in front of him. His hatred and thirst for revenge surged like never before. And then, Aduin cut his head clean off. But strangely, Gislin later woke up, whole, unharmed, and very much alive. Not only was his body intact, with no sign of injury, but he even looked noticeably younger. He looks around, clearly confused about what's going on. Just then, someone calls out to him, addressing him as young master and urging him to come out. The man is actually a soldier from the Peridium household, Ricardo. But before Ricardo can say much, he finds a sharp sword aimed at his neck, as Gislin demands answers immediately. Ricardo, clueless about the situation, agrees to answer whatever his master asks, though he can't understand why a sword is necessary for a conversation. Even Gislin is caught off guard by Ricardo's reaction. After all, this was supposed to be an enemy. Ricardo pulls himself free from Gislin's grip and reminds him that he had collapsed from exhaustion earlier after throwing tantrum. He'd been stressing out over how to lead a raid on the orcs. Naturally, this explanation makes zero sense to Gislin. Then Ricardo tells him to grab his stuff and head out because everyone's waiting outside. Gislin, still lost, asks where they're going. Ricardo informs him they're heading to the Peridium estate. Hearing his family name shocks Gislin. As far as he knows, that estate was destroyed. But as they reach a hill overlooking it, he gets a clear view, and it's unmistakably the Peridium estate, fully intact. He had once seen it burned to the ground, and now here it stands. Ricardo, a bit confused, mumbles under his breath, wondering why his master keeps referring to his own home as if it had fallen. If the Count hears that, there could be consequences. Try and make sense of it. Gislin pinches his cheek, hoping this is just a dream, but the pain is real. That's when it hits him. He's younger now, the estate is untouched, and everything seems to have gone back to how it was. Which means he's traveled back in time. Back then, his younger self was resentful toward the family. That immaturity, rooted in feelings of inferiority, caused endless trouble. Eventually, people in the household started avoiding him, and unable to handle the criticism, he ran away. Years later, he became a mercenary, survived brutal battles, honed his skills, and earned a name for himself. He returned to Peridium hoping to make amends, but by then, the estate had already been reduced to ashes. He had lost everything, but now somehow it's all back. Everyone he cared about is still alive. He's overwhelmed, realizing he's been given another chance. But there's no time to celebrate. From what Ricardo mentioned, they're on their way to raid the orcs. And Ghislain remembers this day all too well. It was the day nearly everyone in his squad died. In his past life, he had joined the orc raid squad to prove himself. The report back then had mentioned only 3 orcs, so Ghislain, with no command experience, thought it'd be easy peasy. But when they arrived, they were ambushed by over 20 orcs. Because of his recklessness and pride, most of the squad was wiped out. Right now, our MC feels pretty confident that the situation is manageable, mainly because those orcs don't seem to have any real tactics. But the real issue is whether his soldiers will actually trust him, considering they all think he's just some worthless loser. Unfortunately, he doesn't even get a moment to prepare because out of nowhere, a watchtower gets completely wiped out as a massive horde of orcs comes charging in. Ghislain is absolutely stunned by the sudden attack. He hadn't expected these creatures to strike so soon. The orcs are tearing through the soldiers like it's nothing, and each one is powerful enough to wipe out multiple foot soldiers single-handedly. Raid Squad Commander Scovin jumps into the fray and shouts for everyone to form a defensive line. But honestly, it looks like no formation or tactic is going to stop these savage beasts, who are slaughtering people nonstop. Even Scovin is convinced they're doomed. Getting ambushed like this with zero preparation is just brutal. And to make things worse, there are way more of these monsters than anyone expected. With the way things are spiraling, Scovin is sure they're all going to die. Then suddenly, someone shouts at the commander. When Scovin turns around, he sees a massive beast about to crush him with its axe. He barely has time to react. That's when Ghislain lunges in, yanks Scovin out of harm's way, and slices straight through the monster's hand like it's just a cucumber. Everyone is left speechless. How the hell did Ghislain pull that off so effortlessly when he's supposed to be the useless one? The beast collapses, while Ghislain mutters in irritation about still not being able to use mana. He walks up to the commander, offers his hand, and demands command over the troops. But Scovin refuses flatly. He doesn't believe a so-called worthless brat should be leading during such a dire moment. He even asks Ghislain if he thinks this is some kind of game. Even if Ghislain is the young master, Scovin says he can't just hand over authority given by the lords so easily. But Ghislain had already guessed that no one would believe in him, and now he's getting pissed. Just then, another monster charges at them, and Scovin steps in, thinking Ghislain is too inexperienced to handle this. But Ghislain decides it's time to shut these idiots up and show them what he can really do. He throws a sword at the beast with insane speed. The commander immediately starts yelling at him for disobeying orders, but shuts right up when he sees the orc drop dead from a single hit. It's clear the sword struck with terrifying precision. The commander stands there looking like he's suffering from a serious case of constipation. Meanwhile, Ghislain stares at him and asks if he even knows the most crucial thing in battle. Of course, the commander doesn't, because clearly, he's the real useless one here. Ghislain shifts his focus toward the frightened soldiers and reminds Scovin that there's no way to win a battle when fear has already taken over the troops. The first step should be gaining momentum. With that, our guy dashes forward once more, yanks his sword from the monster's skull, and launches himself into the air. He lands squarely on another orc and drives his blade straight into its head. Scovin can hardly believe what he's seeing. Meanwhile, our boy boldly challenges the monsters, taunting them to come at him if they want to die. Predictably, these brainless beasts charge at him, and he slices through them with the precision and speed of a ninja on an energy rush, tearing apart every single one that dares cross his path. His movements, reflexes, everything is happening at such incredible speed that Scovin is left frozen, staring in total disbelief. Even as a mana user, he can't keep up, so he can't begin to fathom how his skinny young master is pulling the shit off. Scovin notices that despite the obvious signs of fatigue, our guy is still evading attacks with the bare minimum of motion, and his sword strikes land perfectly on the enemy's weak points, like a master swordsman who can't even use mana, or maybe even someone beyond that level. But our MC isn't done. He keeps provoking the monsters, mocking them for being nothing like the fearsome warrior race they're rumored to be. The other soldiers are just as stunned, watching as every single orc charges toward the young master. They turn to their commander, waiting for orders, but the coward doesn't even come close to showing the kind of guts our boy has. He's still trying to process the fact that the young master deliberately charged into a swarm of orcs just to draw their attention. He doesn't get why he's now running straight toward the edge of cliff. But it soon clicks. Ghislain plans to lure the orcs off the cliff. Acting fast, Scovin orders his troops to raise their shield wall and prepare to back him up. Meanwhile, the orcs are right behind our guy, chasing him down. MC trusts that Scovin, being the capable commander he is, will catch on to the plan. As much as he'd love to hack every one of these orcs to pieces himself, he just doesn't have the stamina. But this plan isn't bad either. At the cliff's edge, the orcs realize too late that soldiers are waiting behind them in defensive formation. Without hesitation, our guy leaps off the cliff, signaling Scovin to follow through. The soldiers charge in and slam into the monsters, shoving them off the cliff to their brutal deaths below. The risky move works, and every last orc is eliminated. Though drained, the soldiers pull through. Scovin is still frozen in shock when he spots our MC clinging to the cliffside, his sword jammed into the rock to hold himself up. Even in this situation, there's no fear on his face, only a confident smirk aimed directly at Scovin. For a second, the big, mustache commander is thrown off, but then a proud smile spreads across his face. He quickly reaches out a hand, but it falls just short. The grip on the sword loosens. And just like that, the boy starts to fall, leaving everyone stunned by the sudden twist. Meanwhile, Ghislain begins slipping into unconsciousness, drifting into a dreamlike state where he hears his sister's voice and sees scattered fragments of memories involving her. He doesn't quite understand what's happening, until suddenly she grabs his hand, and just like that, he's pulled out of the dream. He jolts awake in bed, confused and shocked that he's even alive. As he tries to sit up, a wave of pain rushes through his entire body, making even the smallest movements agonizing. Every inch of him aches, a harsh reminder of how far he pushed himself. But in a strange way, it reassures him that he survived. At that moment, a maid enters the room with a relieved smile. It takes him just a second to realize it's Belinda. She's clearly both happy and upset, scolding him for all the stress he caused. But Ghislain doesn't hesitate. He throws his arms around her, hugging her tightly. She's totally confused by the sudden affection, unaware that to him, seeing her again after so long is overwhelming. You see, Belinda had been his personal maid since childhood. Through all the chaos he caused, she was the one who stuck by his side. But after his family's downfall, she vanished, and he never thought they'd meet again. Now, with her in front of him, he feels like he has to be honest. So he drops a bombshell. He tells her a catastrophe is heading straight for Peridium and admits that he actually died and came back to life. Naturally, Belinda brushes it off. She agrees the orcs nearly killed him, but she refuses to believe his bizarre tale. He tries to explain further, but she just scolds him for being reckless. Realizing she won't believe him no matter what, he gives up. Belinda then shifts the topic, reminding him of the upcoming festival, something he would have missed if he had stayed injured. That catches Ghislain off guard. Seeing his blank expression, she reminds him that Lady Elena has been looking forward to going with him. It's the perfect opportunity for the siblings to reconnect. Suddenly, Ghislain remembers this festival. In his past life, he never got to enjoy it. It was around this time that something traumatic had happened. So when he asks how much time is left, she tells him it's next week. He has a week to prepare. But this isn't just about a festival. In his previous life, this exact day marked a tragedy that haunted him forever. On the day of the festival, his sister Elena was supposed to die. Right on cue, Elena walks into the room. Ghislain instantly pulls her into a hug, catching her completely off guard. Blushing, she accuses him of playing some weird prank. She doesn't realize how real his feelings are. He's simply overwhelmed to see her alive. But since he won't let go, Elena ends up forcefully pulling herself away, leaving his weakened body swaying under the pressure. Turns out, she's got some serious strength. From her reaction, it's clear the two siblings don't exactly have a warm relationship. Elena bluntly says she's only here because Belinda asked her to come. Apparently, there's some past grudge. Elena still remembers the time he insulted her. Ghislain, clueless at first, eventually realizes that yeah, he wasn't exactly a great brother in his past life. Honestly, he was kind of an asshole. So, he does something shocking. He apologizes. Both Belinda and Elena are stunned. Ghislain admitting fault? That's unheard of. They joke that maybe he got hit in the head too hard by the orcs, and knock something loose. But Ghislain quickly shuts that down, saying he really did get them. Right then, another wave of pain hits, and he doubles over. Elena doesn't miss the chance to poke fun, clearly enjoying the moment. It's obvious who came out worse in that fight. But Ghislain doesn't mind. Even with her sarcastic comments, he's just glad to see them being exactly the way he remembers. There's something comforting about it. And in that moment, he can't help but think, why did the Oldham waste so much time on things that didn't matter? During the upcoming festival preparations, Ghislain had turned down Elena's offer to attend together, using the raid squad incident as an excuse. That ended up being the last time he ever saw her. Not long after, Elena and her bodyguards were found brutally torn apart. Ghislain still regrets not being there for her when it mattered most. Suddenly, a knock interrupts the moment. Two knights appear at the door, Elena's bodyguards. The one with dark brown hair is Jamal, and standing behind him is Philip. Elena questions their presence since they were told to wait outside. One of them apologizes and explains that the servants have requested her to supervise the festival preparations. This catches Ghislain off guard. He doesn't understand why Elena needs to be involved in that. Belinda looks disappointed at his reaction and reminds him of the worker shortage in Peridium. Even someone like Elena has to pitch in. It's only now that Ghislain realizes this, since he never really paid attention to such things before. But now that he's here, he offers to help. His little sister is visibly shocked, and both girls start to wonder if he might have actually been knocked in the head or something. Soon, they reach the festival site where everyone's busy setting up their stalls. But when they hear that Ghislain wants to help, a strange unease creeps in. His sister keeps trying to push him away, saying the best way he can help is by not getting in the way or causing trouble. But Ghislain refuses to leave her alone. After all, Elena's body was discovered near the slums, far from the festival location. Someone must have either lured her out or dragged her there. He wants to make sure nothing like that happens again, and for that, he needs to fully understand the castle's layout. Just then, a knight runs in, calling for Ghislain. It's old man Fergus, out of breath but clearly emotional. He starts crying, admitting how scared he was after hearing about the orc attack. Ghislain's sister jumps in too, pointing out how oddly he's been acting lately. She thinks it might be best if Fergus just takes him back. Seeing no other choice, Ghislain agrees, but requests to be taken to the abandoned training field in the castle instead. Fergus, puzzled, asks why. Ghislain simply says he wants to train. Though unsure what the young master is planning, the old man doesn't press him further and leads him to the training hall. As Ghislain steps inside, the first thing that strikes him is how well-kept the training hall is, far better than he ever imagined. It's the perfect spot for him to train, and the equipment, way more advanced than anything he ever came across during his mercenary days. The old man explains that they've kept the place in shape just in case Ghislain ever wanted to return. He'd always believed Ghislain would eventually overcome whatever inner battle he was fighting. That genuine concern makes Ghislain pause. He never realized how much the old man had been trying to support him. It hits him hard. He feels a wave of guilt for not noticing it sooner. Quietly, he pats the old man's shoulder and says something half-joking, half-serious. Dying sucks, so he might as well try living a while longer. The old man, as usual, is baffled hearing him talk like he's already crossed over to the afterlife. But Ghislain just shrugs and admits it. Yeah, he did die and came back. Not that the old man buys any of it. Without dwelling further, Ghislain turns his focus back to training. He dismisses the old man, telling him he can leave now. Watching Fergus show him so much respect makes Ghislain reflect on how he's always treated those around him like enemies. But now, looking back, he realizes he was just being narrow-minded. Still, he can't get distracted. There's serious work ahead. In his past life, he heard that Elena's death was orchestrated by a lord from a neighboring territory. That one act dragged Peridium into a war that ultimately led to its destruction. Her death was the first domino in the fall of his house. And now, he's determined to fix everything, starting right here. First priority, rebuild his body. Time's short, but if nothing else, he needs to gain control of his mana. In this world, mana is a mystical force that allows humans to surpass their limits. Most people struggle to even sense or absorb it. But for Ghislain, even in the middle of chaotic battles, that part came naturally. He starts bundling the mana particles from the air, weaving them together like spinning thread. With countless battles under his belt, maybe even tens of thousands, forming a mana core is second nature to him. But if it were really that easy, he wouldn't be one of the top 7 strongest individuals in the land. Drawing from a half-burned magic book and tapping into the natural mana core all humans possess, Ghislain manages to forge not just a second, but a third core. He links them into a complex mesh of interconnected cores, forming a massive burst of energy. The effort takes a toll, blood trickles from his nose and mouth, and sweat pours down his face. He's definitely hit his current limit. Back in his previous life, he had reached 5 cores. The entire technique is about generating an overwhelming force in a short time, but it guzzles mana at an insane rate. That's actually why he lost to Eden before. The guy showed up with a whole night order while Ghislain was already running on empty. In a fair one-on-one, he would have crushed him. The technique might be unstable, but it's enough for now. This time, he's got a younger body and all the time he needs to master it. And this time, Eden's head, it's his for the taking. As for the traitors backing House Delphine, the ones who helped ruin their homeland, they're going down too. A week quickly goes by, and the long-awaited day of the festival finally arrives. Ghislain is all geared up, walking through town with steady, unshakable confidence. But as he moves along, he unexpectedly spots his sister, who looks surprised to see him. She's stunned, not just because he showed up to the festival, which he's never liked, but also because he's been acting strangely lately. All she's been hearing is how he's done nothing but train nonstop for the past week. Trying to play it cool, Ghislain brushes off her concern, casually reminding her that, as the heir to a knightly family, training is simply a normal part of his life. But she doesn't let it slide so easily. She hits him with a harsh reminder that he's always despised the idea of becoming Lord. That very attitude, she points out, was one of the main reasons he never got along with her father. Even though her words sting a bit, she walks away with a smile, clearly happy to see him finally stepping into the role he was meant to fill. Her comment lingers in Ghislain's mind, making him realize that his actions have already started shifting how people see him, and possibly even changing the course of his future. While major events may still play out the same, the small things are becoming harder to predict. And now, using his knowledge of what's to come wisely has become his responsibility. He'll need to handle every situation with care. With that in mind, he's fully prepared to confront the ones who will kill his sister. For now, he sticks by Elena's side, staying alert. But after some time, she starts getting bored and complains that this year's festival feels just as dull as all the others. Meanwhile, Ghislain is lost in thought. The festival's almost over, and still, nothing major has happened. This makes him wonder, could the future have changed simply because he stayed close to Elena? Just as that thought hits, her bodyguards appear. They suggest taking Elena to a livelier part of the festival so she can enjoy herself a bit more. As they start to escort her away, Ghislain quickly puts the pieces together. These two, Jamal and Philip, are the trusted knights who protected Elena since childhood. In his previous life, they were said to have been killed while defending her. But now doubts start creeping in. Ghislain becomes convinced it's a trap. These guys must be the traitors within the family. He follows them quietly. The spot they arrive at is completely deserted, which immediately annoys Elena. She starts complaining about how pointless this all is. As she vents, Ghislain's suspicions only grow. At first glance, it's just an empty street. But the way debris and objects block every exit, that clearly shows this was prepared ahead of time. Just then, he's pulled out of his thoughts when Elena suddenly grabs his arm and starts dragging him along. Surprised by her strength, Ghislain jokingly asks if she's been hitting the gym, because for a young lady, she's seriously strong. But before she can reply, Jamal steps in to stop her, and the expression on his face says it all. His intentions are far from good. Elena starts trembling, panic creeping in as she wonders why everyone is acting so strangely. Jamal quickly apologizes for scaring her, but then his expression twists into something even more disturbing. He calmly says he just wants her to wait a little longer, claiming it's a small favor. Elena, now terrified and feeling utterly helpless, is interrupted by the arrival of someone new. A man wearing glasses steps into the scene, trailed by 2 of his goons. His name is Frank, and he looks quite satisfied with how well Jamal has handled things so far. Frank then turns to Jamal, confused about why Ghislain is even here. He doesn't recall ever asking for this extra baggage. Jamal tries to reassure him, saying he'll handle the kid himself, and Frank won't even have to pay. Ghislain, it turns out, had blindly followed his sister, completely unaware that he was walking right into a death trap. Finally, Ghislain speaks. The first thing he demands is how this traitorous bastard plans to get away with betraying the Peridium family. But the man just laughs, barely fazed. He arrogantly claims all he has to do is run far away. He's done with this broken, poverty-ridden land that's already been ravaged by barbarians. And he's not alone. Plenty of others want to leave Peridium too. But before he can finish that sentence, the main character strikes. No words, just blood spilling from his mouth as he drops, sliced clean in two. Everyone's stunned. Jamal hits the ground, lifeless, and Ghislain glares at the corpse, furious. He reminds the traitor that even if people chose to leave this land, they never sold out their own. His anger blazes as he locks eyes with the second traitor, who panics and yanks Elena closer, hoping she'll shield him from the same fate. He's dead wrong. A sword drives straight through his skull. He quivers, gasping for air as death takes him too. Now, Frank's goons start having second thoughts, wondering if they even want to get involved. What throws them off even more is that this guy, supposedly the eldest son of Peridium, isn't supposed to have any real combat experience. No training, no skills, at least that's what they believed. But Frank confirms it. This is the eldest son. Still, he can't comprehend how this guy just wiped out two men like it was nothing. And even more shocking, his attacks were laced with mana. Meanwhile, the girl clung to her brother, shaking with fear. But without hesitation, he knocked her out with a quick strike to the neck, telling her to get some rest. Frank, that smug bastard, thanked our guy for taking care of the two knights, pretending they had planned to handle them themselves. He even praised Ghislain's godlike skills and couldn't help but ask where he learned them. But Ghislain wasn't having any of it. He shut them down cold, making it clear it was none of their business. He quickly sized them up, 3 of them altogether, but only the one in the middle seemed to be giving off any real mana. Still, no matter who they were, Ghislain was ready to end this fast. Before making his move, he demanded to know who hired them to stage the ambush. Frank, with that annoying smirk, brushed it off, acting like someone about to die didn't deserve to ask questions. Of course, Ghislain knew they wouldn't give up the information so easily, but he had his own methods of making people talk. One of the goons suggested just cutting his head off, but their boss shut him down, saying he wanted him alive. He planned to break every bone in Ghislain's body until he was nothing more than a cripple writhing in pain, making sure his suffering was long and agonizing. With that, 2 of the lackeys charged. But Ghislain was prepared. He suddenly pulled out a firecracker and tossed it at them. That completely threw one of the thugs off. He froze for just a second, confused as to why anyone would use something like a firecracker. But that tiny moment of hesitation was all Ghislain needed. In a blink, he closed the gap and killed one of them on the spot. The second one lunged at him next, but Ghislain didn't flinch. He effortlessly blocked the attack, disarmed him, and yanked the sword from his grip. Without wasting a second, he followed through and cut the guy down like it was nothing. As the second lackey hit the ground, their leader tried to pull a cheap move, sneaking up behind Ghislain to land a surprise blow. But our guy's reflexes were razor sharp. He blocked the ambush like it was nothing. Frank was stunned, realizing his sneak attack had completely failed. And Ghislain wasn't about to let that slide. He retaliated in an instant, his sword moving so fast that Frank could barely react. The blade slashed deep across his throat, and the pipe he'd been smoking dropped to the ground. Frank, now desperate, launched another attack, but Ghislain easily blocked it again. Even Frank had to admit, without using mana to shield his neck, he would have been done for. And even Ghislain had to give him some credit. He'd focused all his mana around his neck to reduce the damage. Pretty impressive, honestly. That's when Frank finally decided to get serious. Clutching his sword tightly, he hurled himself at Ghislain. But just as he did, he caught a glimpse of Ghislain's grin, like he'd been waiting for this moment. That split second of confusion was all it took. Ghislain completely overpowered him and slammed a brutal kick straight to his face. Frank manages to land on his feet instead of crashing down and smirks, confidently claiming that with his mana levels, a move like that won't affect him. But his confidence crumbles instantly when he starts violently coughing up blood. His expression twists in complete confusion. He has no clue what just hit him. Even though his body was reinforced with dense mana, he can't believe Ghislain still managed to break through it with nothing but raw skill. Meanwhile, Ghislain's thoughts drift to the mystery surrounding his sister's death. He never knew who was responsible, until now. And now that he does, he's ready to make this bastard pay. He warns Frank to brace himself, because things are about to get real. Then, Ghislain activates his third core. Frank stands there, stunned, but he doesn't get the luxury of time to react. Ghislain's already charging him. They clash at such insane speed that only the glowing trails of their blades are visible. Frank fights back with everything he's got, but it's clear he's falling behind. His hands are going numb, and no matter how much mana he channels, it's not enough. His sword starts to crack from the sheer pressure. He's never even heard of a technique that boosts mana to this insane level, especially with such control. It's like Ghislain has transformed into an entirely new person. And that new person lands a brutal strike, slashing Frank hard across the body. But Ghislain isn't finished. He drives his sword deep into the man who killed his sister. Still, he doesn't let him die just yet. There are answers he wants, burning questions he needs resolved. Gritting his teeth, Ghislain demands to know who ordered the hit on Elena. But Frank isn't about to give up information so easily. He quickly whips out hidden ninja daggers, trying to go after Elena again. Before he can even move, threads block his arm mid-motion. Ghislain is the one controlling them. He decides to give Frank one more chance, answer everything truthfully, and he'll sheath his sword. Frank, now absolutely stunned, realizes the threads are made of mana, crafted and controlled by Ghislain himself. Ghislain knows someone at Frank's level should be able to patch himself up. Not that it'll matter if he destroys his mana core. Without hesitation, he starts channeling magic into the sword already lodged in Frank's gut. The bastard screams as his mana core begins to break apart. It's a dangerous move. One mistake and the mana backlash could explode the entire area. It genuinely looks like Ghislain is risking a full self-destruct. But he's no rookie. He can handle it. Even Frank can tell Ghislain isn't bluffing. When he looks into Ghislain's eyes, all he sees is a blood-soaked Reaper. Realizing he has no way out, Frank finally gives up the name, Count Desmond, the real mastermind behind Elena's assassination. He further admits this entire incident was part of a bigger scheme, a setup meant to ignite a war between the Peridium and Degard families. Ghislain doesn't think highly of the name Desmond. In his past life, dirty work like this was handled by families loyal to the dukes. If his instincts are right, Duke Delphine is likely the one pulling the strings. Still, the facts remain. Frank came here to kill his sister. So Ghislain makes sure to finish him off and take revenge for the past. Frank, in his final moments, thinks Ghislain is going back on his word. But Ghislain coldly reminds him of all the sins he's committed. He has no right to be afraid now that karma's finally caught up. But then, something unexpected. Frank starts laughing, even as he bleeds out. He claims nothing will change, even if Ghislain kills him. The damage is done. He's already completed his mission with the Degard family. No matter what Ghislain does now, Peridium is doomed. War is inevitable. Ghislain swiftly covers the bastard's filthy mouth to shut him up and quietly tells him the truth. He's already died once and come back, so there's no way he's letting history repeat itself. Those were the last words Frank heard before Ghislain activated the mana core shattering process. The mana inside surged backward, and Ghislain redirected it into the sky, triggering a massive explosion like some warped firework. Exhausted, Ghislain could barely breathe, but at least everyone who needed to be dealt with had been taken care of. Then he noticed his unconscious sister lying there, seemingly safe and peacefully asleep. Just as he let his muscles relax and close his eyes for a moment, blood suddenly spilled from his mouth, and he doubled over in pain. He thought to himself, back when he was the mercenary king, destroying 3 cores would have been easy. But now, with this fragile body, it's clearly limiting him. Even so, he wasn't ready to give up. He quickly made his way to a nearby house and discovered a corpse. In his previous life, authorities had found a second body at this same location, along with Elena's. And from what Frank had mentioned earlier, that body was supposedly Degard's son. There was also the escort knight who died during the event. These bodies were the reason why the Peridium family in his past life had assumed the Degard family was behind Elena's assassination. The moment those corpses were discovered, war had broken out. This time, Ghislain made sure there would be no such evidence. He set the entire house ablaze. After that, he picked up his sister and began walking away. That's when we see some creep in a cap lurking in the shadows, secretly watching him. Later, that same guy shows up at a shady council. Basically, all the people running the show behind the scenes and reports that the mission failed. Naturally, the bigwigs weren't happy to hear it. One of them, cloaked in a hood, blames everything on Ghislain Peridium. The moment that name comes up, the room tenses. How could some nobody from the north pull off something this huge? Another council member scoffs, saying Ghislain's always been a worthless piece of trash, so blaming the failure on him sounds ridiculous. But the hooded guy insists Ghislain was nothing like the man they had intel on. The way he executed everything was far too skilled, almost like he'd become an entirely new person. He tries to calm him down by saying he's already handled things with the Degard family, so sparking a territorial war won't be a problem. He pleads for one more shot to prove himself. But one of the higher-ups explodes in anger. The chaos from his failure has already caused serious problems, and now the entire council is in disarray. They all agree that the only solution is to kill Ghislain. Then the top dog among them finally speaks, cutting through the noise. He asks the hooded man how he plans to handle Ghislain. The reply? He's going to set up a duel, make it look natural. And the opponent? Someone powerful. When asked who this person is, the hooded guy says it's Cain Loges, a powerhouse swordsman known for his brute strength. Despite being young, Cain is unmatched in physical combat. And here's the kicker. He's Ghislain's cousin. That connection would make their encounter feel perfectly natural, not staged. The room falls silent as they mull over the idea. But the top guy doesn't let him off the hook so easily. He warns that if this mission fails too, there won't be another chance. Shaken, the hooded man quickly swears he'll deliver results this time. The scene shifts to the Peridium Castle's training hall, where Fergus arrives to inform our boy that it's time for a meal. But just then, he spots a rope-like thread of mana flying toward him. It grabs the sword hanging beside him and quickly retracts, pulling the sword along. Ghislain, having practiced for a while now, is pleased to see he's making progress. That's when he notices Fergus, who immediately bows his head in apology for interrupting the session. But Fergus can't help his curiosity and asks how Ghislain managed that move. Ghislain casually explains that it's something called mana threads, using mana like string. In his previous life, it was second nature to him. But now, his current skill level is too low, and he lacks the mana needed to use it like before. To do so fully, he'd have to implode his core. However, by creating just one thread, he can minimize the mana cost and still use it effectively despite his limited resources. Fergus admits that despite training his mana for a long time, he's never seen anything like this. Now that he thinks about it, not long ago, Ghislain wasn't even using mana at all, let alone training with it. He's baffled by how Ghislain came up with the idea. Shaking himself out of it, Fergus returns to the reason he came. He respectfully nods and thanks Ghislain for protecting the young lady. But Ghislain brushes it off. There's no need for thanks. She's his sister, and he would have done it no matter what. A few days pass, and the festival is put on hold. Understandable, given that a guardian knight just tried to traffic a noble lady. Meanwhile, Elena is fuming. No one believes her when she says Ghislain was the one who saved her. She asks her brother why he won't step in and convince them. But Ghislain just shrugs. He doesn't care, and even if he tried, no one would believe him anyway. Belinda, on the other hand, is furious just thinking about how the real culprits were Jamal and Philp, the ones who attempted to abduct Elena. Regardless, Ghislain is just relieved that his sister is safe and that he managed to prevent a war. But deep down, he knows those bastards won't stop so easily. And he can't hold them off forever on his own. He needs to start building his own military force. Just then, a maid enters with food. But instead of something nice, Ghislain gets a dry piece of bread. Surprised, he asks Belinda about it. She explains that it's part of the fallout from the recent chaos. Right then, a loud voice echoes through the halls, some fat merchant yelling for compensation because of the canceled festival. And it's not just him. There's a whole mob of merchants gathered outside, demanding they be reimbursed for their losses. Looking out the window, Ghislain asks who they are, and Belinda reminds him. This country's economy relies heavily on merchants and the profits from the festival. Last year was a huge success, but this year it got canceled after just one day. No wonder they're pissed. Only now does Ghislain realize just how bad the financial situation is. If he doesn't do something soon, things could spiral out of control. He tells Fergus to send out soldiers to calm the crowd, but Fergus calmly informs him that there are no soldiers available. Most of them have been dispatched to the Forest of Monsters to help with reconstruction after the orc raid. That makes things even worse. Peridium is in a constant state of war. Barbarians to the north and monsters to the south. No money means no soldiers, which just piles onto his growing list of problems. Taking Belinda aside, he whispers that since she's in charge of his finances, they need to find a way to settle the merchants down. But Belinda tells him straight, there's no money left. When he asks why, she reminds him that the Lord cut off his funds because he kept spending recklessly. The idea of being broke makes Ghislaine sick. He demands she lend him some cash, but she doesn't have any either. Everything seems stacked against him. No money, no soldiers, and no way out. Even with all his future knowledge, he's helpless without money to back it up. Just as he's lost in thought, Ricardo bursts into the room at full speed, panting hard. Alarmed, Ghislaine immediately asks what's going on. Ricardo, practically shouting, says there's a problem. Young Master Kane is demanding to see him. The mere mention of Kane catches Ghislaine completely off guard. That's when we witness one of our guys, Knight's Commander Scovan, getting absolutely wrecked by Kane. Kane's insanely built body and brute strength are pounding the poor Knight's face like it's a ripe tomato. Every punch feels like a sledgehammer, and clearly, Kane isn't holding back at all. The final blow knocks Scovan out cold. Ghislaine arrives just in time to find his knight lying beaten and bloodied on the ground. The look on Ghislaine Land's face says it all. He's furious. He turns to face his cousin, eyes blazing with rage. The bastard standing in front of him is massive, so big that Ghislaine looks like a scrawny kid in comparison. And that wicked grin on Kane's face only makes things more intimidating. Beside Kane stands his escort knight. You see, Kane Loges, heir to the Loges County, is the very one with whom House Peridium once had an alliance. He used to be Ghislaine's only friend and his biggest rival. After knocking out the commander, Kane casually approaches Ghislaine. But Ghislaine doesn't flinch. Calm and composed, he asks Ricardo to explain what exactly happened. Ricardo recounts that they were responding to a report of trouble at a tavern. That's where they encountered Kane and his escort knight. During the confrontation, Kane asked Commander Scovan if the rumors about Ghislaine were true. When Scovan explained the details, Kane suddenly grabbed him by the mouth, accusing him of muttering lies under his breath and refusing to tolerate anyone lying to the heir of Loges. At that point, Ricardo finishes his version of events. But then Kane's escort knight steps in, saying Ricardo left out a key part. He adds that Scovan had claimed Ghislaine, someone who never even trained properly, had taken down an orc barehanded and defeated the traitorous escort knights all by himself. That's what pissed Kane off. He thought Scovan was spreading nonsense and gave him a beating as a reality check. Kane then smugly says none of this would have happened if Scovan hadn't lied. Ghislaine doesn't respond out loud, but inside, we hear his thoughts, and they're full of bitterness toward Kane. Once his subordinate, Kane always stirred up chaos whenever he visited Peridium. And no matter the mess he made, no one dared call him out because he was allied with House Peridium. People always respected Kane. But Ghislaine? He was constantly judged and looked down upon. While Kane was praised for his bold, confident nature, traits expected from a rightful heir, Ghislaine was criticized for not measuring up. Now, from Kane's perspective, even he's surprised at how calm Ghislaine is being. Normally, Ghislaine would have snapped and come at him by now. We then get a flashback to a recent moment in Loges County. Kane had received an order to kill Ghislaine. The one giving the order was a hooded man, someone who'd previously failed a mission and taken heat for it from his superiors. This same hooded figure told Kane that if he succeeded, the esteemed one would back the Loges family. Kane confidently assured him that defeating Ghislaine would be easy. After all, Ghislaine was nothing but a weak brat. But there was one thing that gave him pause. Ghislaine was still an heir, so killing him could lead to political complications. The hooded man suggested a solution. Provoke Ghislaine into a duel, make it look like a simple squabble between noble heirs. Then, stage the whole thing as an unfortunate accident. To make sure things went smoothly, the hooded man offered to disguise himself as one of the escort knights to help orchestrate everything. That way, nothing could go wrong. The idea of getting to murder his own cousin thrilled Kane, and the bastard didn't hesitate to agree. In the present, Kane is trying to figure out why there's an order to eliminate Ghislaine. He wonders if maybe Ghislaine has changed recently, which could be the reason. Still, Kane sticks to the plan. To provoke Ghislaine, he calls out and asks why he's just standing there. They're facing off, so he better get things ready. Ghislaine, confused, doesn't know what arrangements Kane is referring to. Kane brings up how the festival's been disrupted and suggests they should spice things up and have some fun. He also reminds Ghislaine how they've always been on the same page for these kinds of things. But Ghislaine barely reacts and vaguely asks if Kane is talking about alcohol. See, this bastard used to make Ghislaine prepare booze and women every time he showed up. Back then, Ghislaine went along with it just to avoid a beating. But not anymore. Because of Kane, he burned through a ton of money, which is also why his father ended up cutting his allowance. Now, Ghislain has clearly figured out the root of his financial troubles, and he's certain Kane is the problem, and possibly the solution too. Meanwhile, Kane keeps pressing, demanding that Ghislain bring him the goods immediately. Ghislain, playing along, agrees, but says that first, Kane needs to repay the money he owes. The hooded bastard can sense something has changed. Ghislain is giving off a completely different vibe now. Even Kane pauses and seriously asks what debts he's talking about. With a calm smile, Ghislain explains that he's been the one managing all of Kane's requests with his own money, and now he wants at least 1,000 gold back. Kane is stunned. To him, that's a ridiculous number. He thought it should have cost no more than 100 gold. Besides, he believed Ghislain was doing all that because they were friends, like a friends with benefit situation. But Ghislain never saw them as friends. He's been this guy's doormat for too long, and now, if Kane values his life, he better pay up. He needs the money desperately and isn't letting Kane walk away without paying his dues. The whole room falls silent, and even Ghislain's own knight, Ricardo, is sweating bullets after hearing such a bold demand. Kane shoots up from his seat, furious. He thinks Ghislain is getting too cocky, probably because of the rumors going around about him. To Kane, Ghislain is still just a leech feeding off this land. Boiling with rage, he clenches his fist, ready to crush him right there. But even as the punch flies straight at him, Ghislain doesn't even blink. At the last second, he shifts slightly, letting the punch miss completely. Shock fills the room. Kane swings again with full force, but Ghislain ducks and drives an open palm strike right into Kane's gut. The blow is so strong it nearly makes the brute cough up blood. Kane tries to swing again, but this time Ghislain freezes his movement. Even though Kane doesn't actually take damage, he acts like he's in pain. The hooded figure rushes over, concerned, but it's obvious Kane's pride is the only thing hurt. Ghislain casually tells him to stop faking. It wasn't even a real hit. But Kane keeps playing the victim. Everyone watching in the pub is left stunned. Ghislain, the supposed weakling, just took Kane down without even trying. People are unsure how to react. Ghislain, of course, knows this bastard is faking it, and he knows exactly what Kane's trying to pull. Kane then turns to his hooded knight and smugly asks if he liked the performance. The knight gives him credit. It was a great act. Kane set things up perfectly to make it seem like Ghislain is the one at fault, just enough to justify a duel. Kane is eager to use this opportunity. If he helps the higher-ups take down Ghislain, he'll earn their support. Plus, it gives him a chance to sever ties with the Peridium household. So he plays along, pulls out a glove, and with some theatrical lines, gets ready to declare a duel. But before he can toss the glove, Ghislain beats him to it and throws the glove straight at Kane's face, challenging him first. After all, Kane insulted the heir of Peridium and assaulted his knight in front of everyone. So now, Ghislain demands a duel. Kane's face goes still, but only for a moment. Then he smirks, thinking Ghislain just signed his own death sentence by asking for the duel. But Ghislain keeps that confident, sassy smile on his face. He then turns to Ricardo and tells him to gather all the merchants protesting outside the castle. He wants them to witness something big, because Ghislain, the young master of the Peridium house, is about to make them some serious money. So, the festival got canceled out of nowhere, and the electric atmosphere that had reached its peak suddenly fizzled out. This left a bunch of disappointed tourists stuck there, unable to leave or enjoy themselves. Basically like a fire that never got to burn properly. In such a situation, if something exciting were to happen, it would be like a blessing for them. That's why, when Ghislain steps into the ring to face that bastard, the crowd absolutely erupts in excitement. People are pouring in from distant places, and the market vendors who had been struggling finally start making some money from these stranded tourists. That chubby merchant, the one who led the protests earlier, now has a full setup with a betting table, letting people place their bets on the fighters. Most of them are betting on Kane Loges, which makes sense. It seems like the safe option. Kane, the hulking brute, stands ready with his massive sword, prepared to begin. But he's clearly irritated that what was supposed to be a serious duel is now turning into some carnival spectacle. He makes it clear up front. He's not going to stop, even if Ghislain surrenders. But Ghislain isn't shaken. He can tell the bastard's real goal is to kill, surrender or not. And since the crowd's big enough now, Ghislain officially kicks off the duel. Just then, a hooded guy interrupts, claiming that the betting can't proceed like this. Everyone's confused until the fat merchant explains. No one has bet on young Master Ghislain. The crowd begins whispering. It's clear they've already written him off. They think he doesn't stand a chance. Kane even finds it funny. Like even the marketplace wants nothing to do with Ghislaine. Because the bet is so one-sided, they decide to adjust the rules to make it a little fairer. That's when Commander Scovin steps up with a bag full of money and places his bet on Ghislaine. To everyone's surprise, Lady Elena also brings out a bag and bets on her brother. While people expected Scovin to show, Elena's appearance catches even Ghislaine off guard, and the crowd's buzzing. She asks the merchant if that much money is enough, and he respectfully says yes. Now that Ghislaine finally has some support, Ken agrees to start the duel, though he's clearly annoyed by how things are unfolding. The match begins, and Ghislaine offers Kane the first strike, saying that since Kane's younger, Big Brother would love to give him the opening move. That cheap knockoff of the Hulk looks confused by the gesture, but Ghislaine confidently draws his sword and calls him out. Kane goes silent for a second, then takes the bait. He gets into position, charges forward like a raging bull, and slams down with his enormous blade. Their swords clash violently. Kane puts every bit of his strength into the hit, but Ghislaine doesn't even flinch. So Kane swings again, this time without thinking, and Ghislaine dodges it with ease. The brute jumps up for a kick, but again, Ghislaine casually avoids it. After this quick back and forth, both fighters retreat briefly. Kane grins with that same creepy smile, clearly enjoying himself. Ghislaine can see the arrogance radiating off him. Belinda is sweating, watching her young master go toe-to-toe with this beast. She even urges Lady Elena to stop her brother. Meanwhile, the hooded guy is feeling smug, totally convinced Ghislaine doomed. He believes Ghislaine has already fallen into the trap. The moment he chose to fight Kane, he was finished. In his mind, Ghislaine will get overwhelmed by Kane's monstrous power, won't find a way to counter, and will burn out all his energy just dodging. Eventually, Ghislaine will slip up and get killed. That's how Kane has crushed so many opponents, pure brute strength. But this time, Ghislaine is more than a match, dodging every attack with insane agility. Even Kane has to admit that Ghislaine become a lot harder to pin down. His skills have improved. Frustrated, Kane pushes even harder. He grabs his blade by the sharp edge with his bare hands and swings at Ghislaine with full force. Though Ghislaine manages to block the blow using his own sword, the attack traps him within Kane's crossguard. Then, using all his strength, Kane hurls Ghislaine high into the sky. Everyone is left stunned, mouths wide open, watching the young master suspended in midair. The only person who seems thrilled is the hooded guy. He's convinced Ghislaine is done for. But he's about to get a rude awakening. While still airborne, Ghislaine channels mana into his legs and regains balance, landing gracefully on the ground. Initially, Ghislaine had been holding back, but now that this jerk has pushed things too far, he's done playing nice. In a flash, he dashes toward Kane at godlike speed and zips past him. The hooded guy can't believe his eyes. Ghislaine managed to land unharmed using mana in his legs. To Ghislaine, this oversized brute is nothing but a clueless swordsman. Probably someone who assumed he was unbeatable just because people got intimidated by a glimpse of his strength. But Ghislaine's here to crush that delusion and show him that raw power isn't everything. Kane, feeling mocked, charges again, demanding how Ghislaine plans to prove that. Ghislaine plants his feet, kicks up the hilt of his sword, leaps into the air, and rains down multiple strikes. Kane fights back with his own blade, but Ghislaine quickly sidesteps and even steps on Kane's sword, catching him off guard. With the brute briefly disarmed, Ghislaine seizes the opening and slashes him. After the intense exchange, Ghislaine comes to a sudden halt, while Kane starts bleeding from every spot that got struck. The crowd is speechless, shock and awe ripple through them as they realize just how far Ghislaine has come. Whispers turn into panic. Could he actually win this? Elena, proud and confident, tells Belinda that her earlier fear was unnecessary. Commander Scovin watches with pride at the incredible display. But the hooded man is drenched in sweat, noticing that the wounds Ghislaine inflicted are shallow. He could have gone deeper, but chose not to. That alone tells him Ghislaine is in full control. Kane, on the other hand, feels utterly humiliated witnessing such divine swordsmanship. Ghislaine now turns to the defeated Kane and throws away his sword. He doesn't plan to use it anymore. He thinks the gap in their skill is so massive that weapons aren't needed. He's going to finish this with his bare hands. That much disrespect is enough to make Kane's blood boil. Ghislaine is ready to teach him a brutal lesson with his fists. Since the big guy's strength lies in hand-to-hand combat, Ghislaine decides to hand-decap himself and fight in his opponent's preferred style. And to make things more interesting, he now bets 2,000 gold, double the original amount. The crowd is in disbelief hearing such a high wager for a barehanded match, especially when it was supposed to be a sword duel. Meanwhile, the hooded man is practically melting, watching Ghislain fearlessly challenge Kane without a weapon. He never thought he'd see the day. Still, a part of him believes Kane might have a shot. The fat merchant quickly announces that the fight is now officially barehanded and encourages everyone to place new bets. This time, more people are siding with Ghislain, realizing that strength alone doesn't guarantee victory. Kane, still arrogant, accepts the challenge, but he refuses to drop his sword. He plans to use it against Ghislain anyway. Belinda panics and pleads with Ghislain to pick up his sword again, but the brute already starts swinging. And Ghislain, calm and collected, completely unfazed, ready to knock some sense into this oversized fool. The moment that sword came crashing down, Ghislain swiftly ducked, so fast that his afterimage seemed to lag behind. He struck hard at the opponent's oversized leg, immediately following it with a brutal uppercut to the chin. Blood gushed from Kane's face. That single blow was enough to rattle his brain and bring one of his knees crashing to the ground. It was unreal. Kane hadn't even seen the hits coming. The audience was just as stunned as everyone else, absolutely loving the unexpected twist in the fight. Meanwhile, Ghislain radiated pure confidence and charm, claiming he hadn't even gotten serious yet and still wanted to have more fun. This bruised the fatty's delicate ego, making him grit his teeth before charging at Ghislain once more. But our boy danced around him effortlessly, dodging every strike with grace. The fight choreography was next level. Even as the narrator, it was hard to keep up with Ghislain's godlike moves. No matter what Kane tried, every attack was met with a counter and an even stronger hit. Blow after blow rained down on him. As Kane reeled from the pain, he found himself thinking back, remembering how Ghislain once couldn't even meet his eyes, always bowing low whenever Kane showed up. But now, that dynamic had completely flipped. Kane kept getting hammered, turned into nothing more than a training dummy. His whole body was a canvas of bruises, his face so beaten up that not even his own mother would recognize him. At one point, Ghislain grabbed Kane by the hair. Looking at this stubborn mess of a man, he couldn't help but feel pity, not for Kane, but for his family. Count Loges had stood by House Peridium with unwavering loyalty, even when it was falling apart, simply because he was a close friend of Ghislain's father. But Kane was nothing like his old man. The scene briefly shifted to the past. Kane was seen shouting at his father, furious about his endless support for House Peridium. He thought his father was throwing away valuable resources on a dying cause. It hadn't even been a week since Count Loges came back home, yet he was already preparing to leave again for Peridium. Kane had begged him not to go, his frustration boiling over at what he saw as blind loyalty. But the Count responded gently yet firmly. He was doing it because they were friends. That was the only reason. Back in the present, Ghislain balled up his fist. Everyone expected another brutal punch, but instead he reached out with a hand of friendship. It shocked everyone. No one had expected this gesture, least of all Kane. But to everyone's surprise, Kane accepted it and admitted defeat. The crowd was floored. Kane conceding the match left everyone speechless. The referee wasted no time in declaring Ghislain the winner. Members of House Peridium were thrilled, watching their young master shine, while Elena was especially joyful to see her brother finally claim victory. But then, a hooded man stormed over to the defeated Kane and began scolding him. He couldn't believe Kane gave up so quickly, just because things weren't going his way. Kane didn't argue. He simply turned his face away and said he was done with the game. Since Kane failed to take Ghislain down, the hooded guy started stressing about how he'd explain this to his seniors. Just then, our boy made another move, this time with a mischievous grin. Ghislain shouted loud enough for everyone to hear that the hooded man here had volunteered to cover the cost of all the meat and drinks for the entire crowd. The hooded guy flipped out, completely stunned by the sudden announcement. But the crowd? They went wild, thrilled at the idea of free food and booze. The hooded man immediately protested, yelling that he never agreed to any of this and demanding Ghislain take it back. But our guy just smiled, placed a firm hand on the guy's shoulder, and told him that this was the price of defeat. And no, this wasn't coming out of the existing bet. He told him to add another 2,000 gold on top of the original 1,000. If he tried to run, there'd be serious consequences. And when Ghislain said that, he wasn't joking. The threat in his words burned straight into the man's memory, leaving behind the image of someone not to be messed with. Later the next day, in Gislin's room, we find Gislin staring at a treasure chest full of glittering gold coins. The amount of money he has is actually pretty huge. To give you an idea of how much it is, you could easily hire a small mercenary corps with this amount of money. But it takes a lot of time to grow money, and those bastards who want him killed won't wait for his forces to grow. So he only has a limited amount of time to execute the business plan he has in mind. That's when Belinda and his sister come up to him with satisfied smiles on their faces. The way they're looking at him feels like they have some ulterior motive hidden behind their smiles. He quickly questions why they're here, to which his little sister politely asks where he plans to spend all this money. Of course, Gislin catches on to what she's implying, so he directly asks her if she wants some, to which the lady responds that she's just asking. Belinda then speaks up, stating that she has a pretty good idea of where he's going to spend it all. She is sure that since Lady Amelia's birthday is coming up soon, Gislin must be planning to put on a grand show to buy his fiancée an expensive present. But we all know that our boy isn't thinking about this at all. However, the mention of a fiancé catches Gislin completely off guard. He literally does not even remember if he even has a fiancée. The maid laughs softly, thinking he must be feeling shy. They know he's pretending to be clueless because he's embarrassed that they figured him out. Still, since Elena is noticing that her brother is quite absent-minded lately, she decides to remind him that they're talking about Amelia of Rayfold County. Finally, the name triggers some memories in Gislin's mind, but they're not exactly fond ones. You see, Amelia Rayfold is widely respected as a noble among nobles, famous for her kindness and selflessness. In her region, she's deeply loved by people from all walks of life. But Gislin sees a very different version of her. In his eyes, she's not some noble heroine, she's a traitor. Why? Because this same Amelia, once seen as the ideal noblewoman, would eventually spark a rebellion. She'd earn the infamous title of the Witch of the North after siding with the Delphine Duchy to deal the final blow that led to Peridium's downfall. To Gislin, she's not a gentle fiancée. She's the very person who betrayed everything his family stood for. He then turns to Belinda and asks when his father will return. Belinda guesses maybe in a week. That's good enough for Gislin. With a full week available, he decides to visit Rayfold County. Belinda seems puzzled. After all, it's not even her birthday yet, so why is he leaving now? But Gislin just says he plans to collect some money from them. Then we finally see Amelia Rayfold herself. At first glance, she looks expressionless, maybe even dead inside, but it's hard not to notice her. Other prominent features. She's currently in a town, offering a pair of sandals to a poor little girl. Apparently, they're her own sandals. The little girl hesitates, unsure if she should accept them, but Amelia reassures her, saying if anyone should walk barefoot on her land, it should be her. She then orders her soldiers to give the girl and her family food and shelter immediately. The soldiers act fast, and as Amelia walks away with her escort of soldiers, the townspeople call out their heartfelt thanks. Later, in the gardens of Rayfold County, we see a man washing Amelia's feet with such devotion it might actually make you jealous. He's clearly proud of her accomplishments. This man is Bernaf, Amelia's escort knight. She tells him that while her father ruled with strict obedience, the common people follow whoever feeds and shelters them. Bernaf remarks that by doing this, she's won the people's hearts, something that will help her in the upcoming succession battle. But Amelia doesn't seem too interested in that. Instead, she casually puts her foot right over his face in a dominantly teasing manner and asks how his duel went against the best swordsman in the north. He apologizes, explaining that he deliberately lost to avoid drawing attention. If he had won, people would have started noticing her, and it's not yet time to reveal her power. He then kisses her feet with deep loyalty, swearing full support. Amelia sees this as natural. After all, she's the one who raised him, and she has no intention of letting him stay weak. She then starts questioning him about the merchants. Bernaf assures her there's nothing to worry about when it comes to the Archia Merchant Guild. All the materials needed for rebuilding the Forest of Beasts outpost, which got half destroyed during the recent orc attack in Peridium, are being bought through her guild. In short, her merchants are reclaiming every bit of support money that Count Rayfold sends to Peridium every year. On top of that, they're also recruiting knights and soldiers who are leaving Peridium, many of them experienced warriors trained for battling barbarian tribes. So far, her plan to drain Peridium dry is going perfectly. She's pleased to hear it. Just as she said before, she reminds Bernaf to keep everything looking like an ordinary merchant guild and to be extremely careful. Their real identity must stay hidden until they've gathered enough strength. Just then, her butler shows up. Bernaf is annoyed that he entered the garden without permission, but the butler quickly shares urgent news from the castle gates. Young Lord Ghislain Peridium has arrived. Although he's supposed to be her fiancé, Amelia doesn't seem the least bit happy at the mention of his name. She coldly asks the butler why Ghislain is here, and the man starts sweating as he reveals the reason. He's come to talk about the Merchant Guild. Both Amelia and Bernaf freeze in shock when they hear this. We then find ourselves in the visitor's room, where she's seated across from our boy, Ghislain. He tries to keep things cool, greeting her with his usual laid-back tone. But she's clearly not having it. Her face twists with contempt. She's pissed that he showed up unannounced, assuming he still hasn't learned the basics of etiquette. Ghislain casually reminds her that her birthday's coming up, so he thought he'd drop by early with a gift. He places a flower on the table and explains he got it from a nearby merchant guild, saying it smells nice and that he might start buying flowers from there regularly. If he remembers correctly, the guild's name is Archium. Of course, she instantly figures out what he's getting at, but pretends she has no clue. She accepts the flower, says she'll be on her way, and starts to leave. That's when Ghislain calls her name, his voice serious now, asking her to sit. She immediately feels the pressure coming off him. Heavy, intense. What shakes her the most is that this is coming from the same guy who used to freeze and barely talk around her. Wasting no time, Ghislain cuts to the chase. He wants money. Around 10,000 gold coins. Naturally, she's not thrilled by the demand, especially not from her so-called fiancé who just barged in like this. She wonders if his father put him up to it, but Ghislain clears that up. His father has nothing to do with this. Besides, he knows she's not planning on marrying him anyway. He suspects she's aiming for the lordship of the land, and, given her secret preparations, she's got a real shot. But he also warns her, if word about her power moves leaks out in Rayfold, she might lose her chance at succession. That hits a nerve. She glares at him, dead serious, warning him not to joke about that. Not even as a joke. Ghislain calmly assures her he'll keep her secret. For now. But he hints that might change if he walks out of the room empty-handed. Still, she stays sharp and sassy. She's already figured out how to deal with him. She calls out to her knight, Bernaf, and the loyal feet licker quickly walks in, bowing politely to Lord Ghislain. Meanwhile, in Ghislain's thoughts, we find out this knight has always been by Amelia's side. The guy's not just loyal, he's skilled enough to rival the strongest swordsman in the north. Sensing what's about to go down, Ghislain warns her. If she tries to kill him here, it could spark a war. Does she really have time for that, with the succession ceremony so close? But Amelia already has a plan. Her excuse? A random intruder burst in, caused trouble, and her escort knight handled it. That's the story the world will hear. No hesitation, she orders her knight to kill him. And Bernaf? He's all too eager to obey. Sword drawn, ready to strike. But Ghislain's not about to roll over and die. If that's how she wants to play it, then he's ready to get serious too. The stage is all set for another divine-level showdown between two skilled warriors. So grab your parrots and buckle up for what's about to unfold. But just when we're hoping for a proper, no bullshit showdown between two men of honor, this piece of shit knight pulls some sneaky-ass crap. Out of nowhere, Ghislain hears a slight rustling behind him, and before he can fully react, an assassin leaps out from an empty armor suit, trying to stab through the sofa and pin him down. But this dumbass is way too slow. Ghislain rolls to the ground like a goddamn ninja, kicks the bastard square in the chest, and launches him right out the fucking window. The lady and her little lapdog stand there like stunned idiots. They never expected him to react so quickly and gracefully. Ghislain doesn't hold back his disgust, calling out that two-faced bitch for acting all polite while setting up a damn ambush. Wasting no time, he lunges at the knight, and the two clash swords. Ghislain mocks him, asking if Rayfold forgot what chivalry means. The knight offers an apology, but fires back, saying Ghislain was the one who barged in uninvited and threw around weak threats, disturbing the lady. The two go at each other fiercely, both trying to land a clean hit, but it's obvious our boy has the edge. His reflexes are on point. He even lands a solid kick that sends the knight stumbling back. The knight clearly underestimated him, assuming he was all talk with no skill. But now he's realizing the harsh truth. Ghislain is anything but a novice. Meanwhile, Amelia is fuming as she watches her knight getting pushed around by someone she once considered a lowly thug. She orders him, in a chilling tone, to stop playing around and bring her Ghislain's head if he truly wants to call himself her knight. Fired up by his mistress's command, the knight starts taking the fight seriously. Now, it's about her honor, and he won't let her down. He confidently challenges Ghislaine to come at him. Ghislaine, wearing a cocky grin, taunts the guy for acting all bossy when he's nothing but an escort knight. But since the fool's asking for it, Ghislaine's more than happy to deliver. They clash again, this time at full force. The knight stops holding back and even manages to cut Ghislaine's face with a sharp strike. Their movements are so fast, it's nearly impossible to keep track. Only afterimages linger in their wake. Amelia, now even more restless, can't believe what she's witnessing. This was supposed to be a punk, yet he's keeping up with her elite knight, Bernaf. The fight is absolutely brutal. Every time Ghislaine goes in for a hit, the knight dodges. Every time the knight strikes, Ghislaine dodges back. The cycle continues, blow after blow. Ghislaine tries to pull the same move he used earlier, but this time he gets slammed to the ground. Sensing an opening, the knight charges, sword ready. But Ghislaine recovers in time, flipping and twisting midair before landing back on his feet. By now, Ghislaine has realized that the knight is using mana to absorb his attacks. Meanwhile, the knight himself starts to see that Ghislaine isn't anything like the rumors claimed. His swordsmanship doesn't seem formally trained. It feels more like a style forged through real, brutal experience. The knight even wonders if Ghislaine has fought barbarians so often that he adopted their chaotic combat style. He admits it might work in a messy battlefield, but insists it won't work against him. Now determined to end the fight, the knight steps up his offense. Ghislaine, though, knows this isn't going to be easy. The knight's sharp, precise strikes aimed at his head are throwing off his sense of distance and rhythm. On top of that, the size difference between them at such close range makes it hard to overpower him through technique alone. Truth be told, Ghislaine should have never picked a fight with this guy in the first place. It's like facing the final boss with beginner gear. But hey, he didn't exactly have the luxury to gear up beforehand. So, he decides to stop holding back. He conjures a mana thread that zips right past the knight's ear, catching him off guard. In that split second, Ghislaine draws a hidden sword and smacks the knight hard at the back of his head. He follows it up with a brutal kick to the face. Bernaf gets dazed from the double hit, leaving the spider lady in utter shock. Then Ghislaine leaps into the air and comes crashing down. But before he can land the blow, the knight uses his raw body strength to hurl him away with a powerful shove. Bernaf urgently tells his mistress to leave right away. He can't promise her safety anymore if things continue like this. From here on, he vows to give everything he's got, but warns her that staying might get her caught in the chaos. Ghislaine, on the other hand, is fired up. He hasn't had such an exciting opponent in a long while. Meanwhile, Amelia is sprinting down the corridor, clutching her cat, visibly shaken. She's furious. How dare the guy humiliate her like this? And who the hell leaked information about the Merchant Guild to Ghislaine? There's no way he could have known all that unless someone helped him. All those rumors about him killing orcs, defending his little sister from assassins, even beating the heir of Loges. She used to think it was just luck or overblown nonsense. But now she's being forced to admit that maybe he really has gotten stronger. As she runs, she notices something odd. None of the guards are around. That ticks her off even more. But soon she sees why. All the soldiers are down, sprawled out across the floor. And the one responsible? None other than Belinda. Amelia freezes, stunned to see Peridium's maid here. Before she can react, Belinda places a dagger to her throat. That's when Belinda notices a spider dangling near Amelia's face. She snatches the little creature with clear disgust and complains about the damn thing. Then, Belinda brings up a memory. She remembers the day of the engagement ceremony, when she overheard a conversation between Count Rayfold and the Lord of Peridium. Apparently, Amelia's siblings used to bully her for always being surrounded by creepy spiders. So Amelia had started raising them herself and took revenge. Belinda isn't sure whether that was a way for Amelia to deal with trauma or just her asserting herself. She then apologizes if her words sound harsh, but says flatly, it doesn't suit Amelia. With that, she crushes the spider under her foot. After stomping it mercilessly, Belinda asks Amelia, rather coldly, to cooperate a little. But before we get to hear what exactly Belinda wants, the scene shifts back to the boys' fight, and things have escalated. The night is now radiating a terrifyingly dark energy, and the air is so thick with mana that even Ghislaine is beginning to feel nervous. The knight is clearly pissed off. He's furious that Ghislaine had the nerve to call him an entertaining opponent, like some low-rank mercenary. He hates that someone he considers a lowly, unserious fool would dare claim to be a noble or stand on the same level as Amelia. But of course, Ghislain is a noble, and he doesn't think an escort knight, like Bernaf, has any right to speak down to him. Bernaf makes the first move, and they begin clashing swords. He's seething, convinced Ghislain is mocking noble pride. His attacks are relentless, blow after blow, while Ghislain holds his ground, impressed by the sheer power and aggression. But Ghislain has reached his limit too. He fights back with just as much fury. The knight isn't holding anything back now. In one heavy strike, he knocks Ghislain off balance and immediately follows up with a stab aimed for a critical blow. Time seems to stop as that blade slices through the air and blood splatters when it grazes Ghislain's shoulder. Bernaf is stunned. Ghislain willingly took the hit to the shoulder just to deflect the attack. Using the injury as leverage, Ghislain shoves Bernaf back. But Bernaf quickly counters with a vicious kick and mocks him, saying this is the difference between a real warrior and some brat who treats swordplay like a game. The kick sends Ghislain flying, but it's still not enough to take him down. In fact, he's still amused. The knight's speed, range, and non-stop attacks keep him in total control of the battle. Any attempt to get in close or grapple is instantly shut down. Now locked in a clash, their blades are pressed against each other, and it looks like Ghislain doesn't have the raw strength to break free with his current mana. But he's playing the long game. He knows the knight hasn't seen it yet, the trump card he's been saving. Ghislain's unique mana cultivation technique is still hidden. In a flash, Ghislain activates his third core, completely tipping the scales of the battle. With just one devastating blow, he disarms the knight, sending his sword flying and leaving him stunned. Bernaf can only wonder how this guy is able to wield such overwhelming mana during combat. Now that Bernaf is completely vulnerable, Ghislain presses his blade to the knight's head, freezing him in place. Just then, Belinda storms in, dragging Amelia along. The once arrogant noblewoman is now a mess, crying and quickly agreeing to hand over the 10,000 gold, begging them to just leave and never come back. Though Ghislain is satisfied that he got what he came for, there's still a tinge of annoyance. It didn't have to go this far. Things would have been so much simpler if Amelia had just cooperated from the beginning. Regardless, he pulls back his sword and turns to Amelia to drop another bombshell. The price has now doubled. It's 20,000 gold. In the aftermath, Amelia's palace is in total disarray. Furious, she's flinging things in frustration. Not only did her knight lose, but now she's stuck paying twice as much. The knight tries to apologize, admitting that Ghislain turned out to be far stronger than any of the rumors had implied. He takes full responsibility, saying it was his failure to properly evaluate the opponent. Ghislain's mana output had far exceeded what even an elite knight should be capable of. That only makes Amelia angrier. When Bernaf suggests reporting the incident to Duke Delphine, she loses it and slaps him. Grabbing him by the collar, she lashes out, because what he's saying isn't even an option. She's clearly scared out of her mind. If the Duke finds out what happened today, she's finished. The truth is, Amelia had formed a secret alliance with Duke Delphine without her father's knowledge. In return for his support in her rebellion, she promised to help him take down Peridium. If this alliance is exposed, her own siblings would kill her. And if Ghislain knows about the Merchant Guild's hidden secrets, he might already be aware of her deal with the Duke too. Which means one thing, he has to be eliminated. She's willing to go to any length to make that happen. The knight agrees with her line of thinking. She then asks about Ghislain's condition. The knight explains that although he managed to injure Ghislain in several places, the worst damage is on his shoulder. Plus, with how much mana he burned in the fight, Ghislain won't be in peak shape for a while. But since they plan to eliminate him without leaving a trace, they can't afford to use any knights from their own territory. Amelia anticipated this and had already made arrangements. She had secretly trained a different group of knights for exactly this kind of situation. Even Bernaf wasn't aware of them. She reminds him about the Wild Cats, a unit made up of war orphans, people with no rank or nation, only raw talent. These Wild Cats are elite mercenaries, often referred to as traffickers due to their brutal efficiency. She gives Bernaf a map with a marked location and tells him to gather about a dozen of them, only those with strong mana control. Bernaf realizes the location makes perfect tactical sense. It's a narrow ravine, the only path between rolled territory and Peridium. Remote and constricted, it's an ideal ambush point where they can take care of things discreetly. Without wasting time, Bernaf sets out to put the plan in motion. This time, Amelia is hellbent on making Ghislain pay for humiliating her. Meanwhile, Ghislain had already left Amelia's palace and was riding inside his carriage. As they moved, he carefully bandaged his injured body. Along with him were old man Fergus and Belinda, who looked concerned. They asked if he was okay, and Ghislaine reassured them. His wounds weren't too deep, and honestly, things could have been worse, especially considering how much he had pushed himself. Still, what mattered most to him was that the 20,000 gold he got from Amelia was more than enough to fund the initial steps to rebuild their territory. That kind of money was equal to saving several years' worth of hard work. Sure, it would have been ideal if he could have killed Amelia too, but doing that would have definitely triggered a war, something he couldn't afford when his land's safety was on the line. Peridium was already having trouble dealing with the barbarians, so he chose to retreat quietly rather than make things worse. Besides, just knowing the secret behind the Archia Merchant Guild was already a major blow to Amelia. Belinda watched him with worried eyes and asked if everything was going according to his plan. She remembered his earlier instructions to subdue the guards if she heard fighting and to take Amelia hostage once she stepped outside. Ghislaine confirmed that yes, those were his exact words. Just then he felt a sharp pain and coughed up blood. It was the backlash from unlocking his third core. Though his condition was better than the last time, this sort of reaction every time he used his powers was far from ideal. He needed a faster way to boost his mana. Belinda quickly grabbed his hand, noticing how messed up the energy flow in his body was. Without wasting a second, she pulled out a needle and pierced the back of his hand with lightning-fast precision. Strangely, Ghislaine found the process calming. When she finished, he exhaled a long breath, feeling a bit of relief. His tangled mana pathways had started to clear. What amazed him even more was how skilled Belinda's technique was. This wasn't something just anyone could do. It required a deep understanding of mana. It made sense if he considered that it was his mother who had brought Belinda into the palace. But even then, Ghislaine couldn't figure out why someone with her level of ability was serving as a headmaid in the countryside. Still, having more skilled people around was never a bad thing, especially since the enemies they had faced so far were likely just the beginning. Belinda, sensing his thoughts, reassured him that she'd support him no matter what. But she demanded to know what he planned to do with such a huge amount of money from Lady Amelia. Ghislaine casually replied that he needed to spend money, and since Amelia was the only wealthy person he knew, he decided to take advantage of that. Both Fergus and Belinda were stunned. Was he seriously saying he ended his engagement just for the money? And now, once Count Rayfold heard about it, there'd be serious consequences. That made Ghislaine smile. He jokingly asked Belinda if she really trusted him. She barely hid her irritation. She had just told him she trusted him unconditionally. And now he was asking again? If he truly trusted her too, he should at least tell her what he intended to do with the gold. Ghislaine answered with a single phrase, the Forest of Beasts. That left Belinda completely speechless. Ghislaine then explained that he was going to use the money to pioneer the Forest of Beasts. Fergus almost leapt out of his seat in shock. That forest had seen failed development attempts since the time of Ghislaine's great-grandfather. Ghislaine reminded the old man of the request he had made earlier. Fergus finally understood what Ghislaine was hinting at, but he hesitated to respond. Eventually, he admitted that the person Ghislaine asked about was indeed at the location he'd mentioned, but he wasn't sure if visiting them was a good idea. Still, Ghislaine had already made up his mind. No matter what, he was going to meet that person. Belinda, however, firmly disagreed. She insisted they return home, especially considering his current condition. Ghislaine acknowledged her concern, but brought up a harsh truth. Did she really think Amelia would let them go so easily after everything that happened? Knowing her personality, he was certain she'd try to kill him just to protect her secret alliance with Duke Delphine from getting out. Belinda tries to show off her thin arms, confidently telling her young master that she can easily handle anyone who dares to come their way. She even reminds him they've got old man Fergus as their knight. Though Ghislaine trusts Belinda and knows she's dependable, he also knows that's not the role she's meant to play. What he needs is a proper vanguard, and they're on their way to meet him. Later, they arrive at a place that has only a single shack in sight. The carriage driver knocks on the door, but there's no response. It feels like the place is abandoned. Still, Fergus confirms this is the exact address they were given. Eventually, someone does answer, a man whose entire face is buried under thick facial hair. He immediately demands to know who they are. Everyone feels uneasy around this strange man, but Ghislaine remains completely unfazed. Belinda even whispers if this could really be the guy they've been looking for, because he doesn't look like someone who could fight, let alone survive what's coming. But Ghislaine assures her with full confidence, this is the man. The old man eyes Ghislain and bluntly tells him to stop wasting his time and leave. That's when Ghislain calls him by his real title, the ex-captain of the Ratatosk mercenaries, Jillian. At the mention of the name, the old man's expression shifts. As he turns around, Ghislain warmly reaches out his hand, inviting him to join them. Both the old man and the carriage driver are stunned at the name drop. See, the Ratatosk mercenaries were once a legendary group, made up only of master warriors skilled with almost every weapon. Though the group doesn't exist anymore, their reputation is so massive that even knights from faraway lands have heard their name at least once. And Jillian was their captain. That's who Ghislain has traveled all this way to find. Without warning, the old man hurls his axe straight at Ghislain. But the guy doesn't even flinch, just slightly tilts his head, letting the axe zip right past. Instantly, the others jump into action, surrounding their young master in defensive stances, ready for a fight. But Jillian isn't here to play games. He bluntly asks why Ghislain is here. Belinda steps in front, thinking this guy is totally insane. But Ghislain simply says one thing: eternal punishment. He goes on to claim he knows the cure for the disease Jillian's daughter is suffering from. That alone is enough to catch Jillian's full attention. His daughter's condition causes constant high fever, frequent blood coughing, and red rashes that bloom like flower petals across her skin. The pain she endures, almost like a prisoner under torture, is the reason this incurable disease was named eternal punishment. At last, we finally see the girl everyone's been talking about. She's screaming in agony, her voice echoing as Jillian rushes into the shack to help his daughter, Rachel. Ghislain can tell it's not too late to save her. In his past life, he'd actually searched for Jillian to recruit him, but the man had ended his own life soon after Rachel died. Judging from the condition of this house, it's obvious that everything Jillian owned was spent trying to save her. Now, all he has left are his weapons. The girl, clearly in unbearable pain, begs her father to make it stop. Seeing her like that, Ghislain doesn't waste a second. He tells Jillian that he's starting the treatment immediately. But just as he's about to act, Belinda stops him. She doesn't understand what he's trying to do. This illness isn't something brute force can cure. Even priests have failed, calling it a punishment from the gods. She seriously doubts there's anything Ghislain can do. But Ghislain simply shrugs her hand off and makes it clear he can cure her. And if Belinda really trusts him like she claimed, she better prove it now. That shuts her up. He hands her a paper listing all the herbs they need and tells her to go fetch them. When Belinda sees the list, she's stunned. The reason Ghislain knows all this? For wandering mercenaries, survival often depends on knowledge. The illness, eternal punishment, may not be curable now, but a cure will be discovered in the future. It even became a hot topic back then, especially because the treatment turned out to be surprisingly simple. That's why Ghislain remembers it so well. The only issue? The ingredients are crazy expensive, one of them being a rare herb called Fairy's Blessing. Now that he has the Fairy's Blessing and the rest of the herbs, he gets to work. He chops them up, packs them tightly in a bottle, and pours distilled alcohol over the mix. After shaking it thoroughly and letting it sit, he adds the remaining ingredients, stirs it all together, and prepares the final potion. The remedy is complete. He hands it to Jillian and tells him to have Rachel drink it. With no reason to hesitate, Jillian quickly pours the medicine into his daughter's mouth. As soon as it reaches her stomach, the effect kicks in. Her bruised and red skin begins healing, and slowly, her body returns to normal, leaving everyone in shock. No one, not even Jillian, expected it to work. But Ghislain already knew it would. Jillian looks at him in disbelief and asks how he managed to cure her when even divine power had failed. Ghislain explains that priest powers aren't absolute. They can boost a body's vitality and help it recover faster, but that's not the same as actually curing an illness from its root. Trembling, Jillian reaches for Ghislain and asks, "Is she really going to be okay?" Ghislain gives him the answer he's been desperate to hear. It'll take a couple of months, but she'll make a full recovery. Jillian's eyes widen. Despite being a strong, towering man, he drops to his knees, bows his head, and humbly asks what Ghislain wants in return. Surely, he must have come for something. But Jillian admits he has nothing to offer but his aging body. If Ghislain wants a servant, he'll obey every order like a dog. But Ghislain makes it clear he doesn't want a slave. What he wants is Jillian, the captain of the Ratatosk mercenaries. Hearing that, Jillian looks up, and what he sees stuns him. The same eyes filled with dreams. Without wasting another moment, he stands tall, grabs his axe, and chops off his long ponytail. Now, he looks like a true warrior, a massive, confident figure radiating strength. He asks if anyone besides Ghislaine's group has been here. Ghislaine tells him it's just him and his 3 companions. Jillian then asks if anyone holds a grudge against him. Ghislaine replies with full confidence, yes, and there'll be more in the future. With that, Jillian grabs his harpoon, charges it with mana, and hurls it with godlike speed straight through his hut into the forest. Moments later, he reels it back in, and stuck on the barbs is a man who had been spying, now caught like prey. Jillian grabs the intruder with his massive hand, his grip firm like a vice, and demands to know who sent him. But the spy seems more curious about how Jillian even knew he was hiding in the woods. Turning to Ghislaine, Jillian asks what he wants to do with the captured man. Calmly, Ghislaine says he already knows who sent him, but he'd rather not sully his blade on a day like this. Still, he admits it seems unavoidable. Just then, Jillian stops him from drawing his sword and promises to deal with the intruder himself. With that, Jillian tightens his colossal grip, and the spy's screams ring out through the forest. Once it's over, the mercenary respectfully bows to his master. Meanwhile, Belinda is clearly disturbed after witnessing Jillian kill so effortlessly and without hesitation. She's left shaken, unable to understand why Ghislaine would recruit someone so dangerous. The big guy, however, drops to his knees and pledges his life to Ghislaine. In return, Ghislaine gives him a confident smile, clearly pleased to have him on his side. The scene shifts to a solitary hut in the middle of a swamp, where the wildcat traffickers are in disarray after hearing that their reconnaissance unit has been wiped out. The senior member, Virgo, captain of the squad, urges everyone to calm down. He remarks that, based on Bernafa's intel, Ghislaine shouldn't have even been able to locate the unit, let alone eliminate them. He questions whether the unit was incompetent or if the intel was flawed. Just then, the reporter mentions that Jillian has joined Ghislaine's group. Enraged, Virgo grabs the reporter by the throat and demands confirmation. Barely able to breathe, the reporter affirms that he saw it with his own eyes. Virgo is stunned by the news. He never thought Jillian would return a killing. Apparently, Virgo was also part of the Ratatosk mercenaries, the same group Jillian once belonged to. Back with our party, Jillian is now driving the carriage. Inside, Belinda feels suffocated by the sheer number of weapons crammed into the space. She wonders if it was really necessary for Jillian to bring so many. Couldn't a sword or 2 have sufficed? She even questions whether he might be some kind of arms dealer. In the other carriage, Fergus and Ricardo serve as the rear guard, keeping watch from behind. Ghislaine tries to remind Belinda that Jillian will definitely put those weapons to good use, so she'll have to endure it for now. Their priority is escaping the rift safely. Belinda then brings up the spy they captured, saying she's convinced it was Amelia who sent him. What worries her more is the mask the spy wore. It bore the mark of the wildcat traffickers, a powerful guild in Rayfold. Their primary trades include smuggling, assassination, drugs, and human trafficking. They're rotten to the core, taking on the dirtiest jobs. Many of their members are skilled ex-mercenaries, making them a dangerous and secretive force. Ghislaine is surprised that Belinda knows so much, especially considering she rarely leaves the castle. She simply replies that she learned all this before she started working there. In any case, she warns him to stay alert since the enemy won't give up easily. Ghislaine appreciates her concern, recognizing how much she cares, and reassures her that he'll be fine, especially now that they have Jillian on their side. Suddenly, the ground beneath them shifts. 2 assassins burst out, trailing the carriage from opposite sides. In the blink of an eye, they leap from the sand, aiming straight for Jillian. But this absolute beast of a man doesn't flinch. He grabs a sword in one hand and an axe in the other, effortlessly blocking both their strikes at once. Not only does he stop the attack, he twists his weapon so viciously that the assassin's arms are ripped clean off. Then, without missing a beat, Jillian slashes through them like they're made of paper. More attackers appear, triggering traps they'd already set. Giant logs come crashing down toward them. But before disaster strikes, Jillian snatches the reins, yanks the bridle, and the horses slam to a halt just in time. The area is now crawling with these eerie assassins, all with weapons fused into their hands. That's when Virgo steps in, casually mentioning that Jillian was once the captain of the Ratatosk mercenaries. He mocks Jillian, calling him a coward for disbanding the group just because of his daughter. But Jillian doesn't seem too bothered by his accusations. Virgo keeps talking, bitterly recalling how he had to live a life he never wanted after the group fell apart. He tells Jillian not to pretend like he doesn't remember his old comrade. It seems Jillian genuinely has no clue who this creepy bastard is, but Virgo's convinced he's faking it. Determined to jog Jillian's memory, Virgo signals his men to attack. Ghislain offers to jump in and help, but Jillian just brushes him off. These guys clearly have unfinished business with him. As the assassins close in to skewer Jillian with their blades, he slices through them like they're vegetables. More come charging from another direction. Jillian braces himself, and the first one gets chopped down instantly. The next attacker doesn't fare much better. His hands are torn apart. Watching from distance, Virgo isn't surprised. Jillian was captain for a reason. Since head-on attacks are pointless, Virgo orders his men to split up and flank him. But Jillian, never one to hesitate, mounts his horse with axe in hand and charges. One mighty swing, and he obliterates them, not letting a single one get near. Realizing they can't touch him, they target the horse instead, but they still don't stand a chance. Jillian swinging his axe like a damn blender, reducing them all to a bloody mess. Finally, Virgo himself jumps into the fight. Jillian quickly raises his shield to defend. Furious and spitting rage, Virgo screams that Jillian destroyed his life and won't be allowed to ruin his plans too. For that, Jillian must die. Virgo slaughters the horse Jillian was riding, but the big guy jumps off without a scratch. Virgo wastes no time, lunging at him with his sword, but Jillian meets the blow head-on with his axe. In the middle of the clash, Jillian calmly tells him he's no longer the captain of the Ratatosk mercenaries. Then he lands a crushing blow that leaves Virgo staggering. With ease, Jillian tosses him aside. Blood dripping from his mouth, Virgo struggles to comprehend. If Jillian's not the captain, then who is? Jillian begins channeling his mana, stating that he's cast aside his past. Now, he's nothing more than a loyal subordinate of young Lord Ghislain. The declaration leaves Virgo stunned. Furious that the man who wrecked his life is now acting so calm, he charges in like a madman. The two clash again, their weapons colliding in a brutal dance. But it's obvious, Virgo is the one struggling. Driven purely by anger, he accuses Jillian of destroying the mercenary company. After Jillian left, everything collapsed. Virgo lost his power and had to live in disgrace just to survive. But Jillian says nothing. He just keeps swinging, attack after attack, pushing Virgo back. Finally, Virgo lands a solid kick that breaks Jillian's shield. He roars that he was willing to throw away his whole life to make the Ratatosk mercenaries legendary. But Jillian tossed it all away, only to serve as a lapdog for some pampered noble. Virgo hurls his deadly ninja daggers, but Jillian spins his axe and knocks away 3 of them. Then Virgo rushes in, dagger in hand, but it flies past Jillian as the clash continues. No matter how strong Jillian once was, Virgo is confident. He's not as powerful now as he was back then. While Jillian wasted time trying to cure his daughter, Virgo kept fighting, growing stronger through endless battles. He's convinced that this cheap Zeus knockoff is no match for him anymore. Virgo swiftly snatches up the 3 daggers from the ground and hurls them straight at Jillian. But the absolute unit, Jillian, casually catches them with his bare hand like they're nothing. As Virgo charges again, Jillian swings his axe, and though the strike comes within inches of Virgo's skull, he manages to dodge just in time. Then Jillian channels mana into his hand midair and halts another dagger with ease. He calmly asks Virgo if revenge is truly the only thing driving him. Virgo, stunned by Jillian's casual display of mana control, quickly realizes that Jillian hadn't even begun to show his full power until now. Before Virgo can react, Jillian's axe comes crashing into his face, launching him with brutal force into a nearby tree. As the old man calmly walks toward him, he questions why Virgo waited so long to come after him if revenge was really all he wanted. With a sneer, Virgo admits he already visited Jillian's former home, but there was no sign of the once feared Ratatosk mercenaries captain, only a feeble old man not even worth killing. It hits hard, realizing the man he once idolized was gone. But Jillian can still see the fire of a warrior burning in Virgo. To honor that, he tosses him a sword and draws his own second blade. He reminds Virgo that, while he now serves someone else, just for this moment, he'll offer the highest form of respect by facing him as the captain of the Ratatosk mercenaries. For Virgo, this is almost surreal. He grabs the dagger and charges in. The clash is intense. Their weapons collide in a flurry of sparks, both warriors appearing to be evenly matched. But then, Jillian lands a brutal blow, driving his blade deep into Virgo's ribs. Despite the searing pain, Virgo refuses to back down and counters, but his final strike falls short. Jillian stands ready to deliver the final blow. Just before he does, Jillian solemnly vows to remember him as the 5th unit commander of the Ratatosk mercenaries, Virgo Villanos. That acknowledgement means everything to Virgo. He smiles, proud and at peace, just before Jillian's sword ends his life. With the battle over, Jillian quietly picks up the dagger Virgo had used. Soon after, Ghislain arrives with Belinda, and they're immediately greeted by the gruesome sight of severed limbs and corpses everywhere. Belinda casually points out that there's a lot of money to be made looting the bodies. Jillian apologizes for the delay, but Ghislain reassures him there's no need. In fact, he's now more impressed with Jillian than ever. Back in his previous life, when Ghislain had just started out as a mercenary, stories of Jillian had helped shape his path toward becoming the mercenary king. Now, he's thankful that his swift actions have earned him such a dependable comrade. Then he notices Jillian holding the dagger Virgo had used and asks if he knew the man. Jillian immediately confirms they were once comrades. That mention of old friends triggers a flood of memories in Ghislain. He starts to wonder what his own former companions are up to now. Since he hasn't met them yet in this timeline, he's sure they're still out there living their lives. But he's determined to find them and bring them into his party when the time comes. For now, with everything settled, he decides to go along with Belinda's idea and scavenge anything valuable from the bodies. She's more than happy with that and tells Jillian to take the lead, but the stoic warrior reminds her that he's not her subordinate. 2 days later, the group finally arrives in Peridium territory after what felt like an endless journey. After traveling for so many days, they had at last entered the land. The brute asks if they've reached Peridium, and our guy confirms it. As Ghislain peeks out of the carriage at his homeland, a wave of emotion hits him. There's comfort in knowing he has a home to return to. When he first ran away, he believed he could come back anytime he wanted. But that belief turned out to be completely wrong. He then looks at Jillian and asks what he thinks of the place. Jillian is momentarily thrown off by the question, unsure how to respond. He simply replies, "It's great." But our guy knows he's just being polite. In truth, the place is in terrible condition, and Jillian, though reluctant to admit it, knows it too. The homes are all old and crumbling, and renovation isn't even an option. The fields lie completely barren, uncultivated, because the farmers have all been drafted into the military, leaving the land neglected. Jillian shares some rumors he's heard, that Peridium is constantly at war due to the northern barbarians. But now that he's seeing it with his own eyes, he realizes the situation is far worse than he ever imagined. Our boy calmly tells him that fixing all of this is exactly why he needs the strength of the Ratatosk mercenaries and their captain. He knows the road ahead is going to be long. This fight isn't just about survival. It's about wiping out everything tied to Duke Delphine and reclaiming what was lost. He's determined to breathe life back into this dying land, no matter what it takes. Finally, as they roll over the castle's stone pavement, Belinda is suddenly stunned by an unexpected sight. Standing right in their path is none other than our guy's father, the man who had vanished at the very beginning of the story. The Lord of Peridium himself.